So today we are going to be showing off how to operate my new piston factory here that we have. So this one is something that was for the 1000 subscriber special, and yeah, so we're going to break it down into how to operate it. We're not going to go through everything, but there is a list of basically everything in the 1000 subscriber special video. I suggest you go take a look at that. I'll explain everything briefly, but we will not go into detail everything. First, we'll start off with the actual UI that the player will actually be experiencing and working with. So we have the nether portal access here. I just put pistons and sticky pistons on the back to cover the back of the portal. And then the main centerpiece here is the first item input for all of the boxes. I'm going to quickly get some shulker boxes of the materials that are in the piston recipe here, so that way we can show how to actually input items here. So yes, this input is only shulker boxes. There is no actual check to make sure the item is shulker boxes, so I would recommend if you build this on a server, you make everybody read signs and stuff, and people won't do it, but that is one thing you could improve, is add in basically a shulker box filter, which is sort of simple to do, but something I'd overlook because I think people will be able to read signs. But yeah, so it's a shulker box only input, and it doesn't matter. This input is also hopper locked. Just for an example, we're going to put 27 shulker boxes of each item type here. Now it is very important you do not send these items off until you select the cores that you would like to operate. So filling it for the first time, you are going to have a massive buffer to each core. I think it's around 200 to 300 shulker boxes per core of material type. Now that is less for iron and redstone. That's because it's only 3 to 4 shulker box buffer for each crafter, compared to the 7 to 8 for the cobblestone and wood planks. So that is due to the amount of hoppers and barrels in between the actual dropper and the shulker box loader. Unfortunately, this is as close as I could get the shulker box loaders. Now yes, you could put hoppers instead of these barrels here, but these ones down here you cannot. So the ones that are above can be spot with hoppers, so you would have less inventory slot. However, that would add a bit more unlocked hoppers, and there's already a boatload of those in this factory. But still, it's still only about 5 ms on the server when active, so it is not too bad. So yeah, that's the reason why we have the big buffer, because you have to all those, and you have to have the one actually being unloaded, plus the one inside of the chest as well. There's really not a way you can get around that because we take the safety feature up here. You could technically take it from down one of these ones here, like this barrel, but then getting the signal up to the top would be the hard part because you're underneath the shulker box loaders. That's kind of why I did it up there. It makes the loop iron a little bit easier, and it is also tileable. These comparators will not interfere with each other, and that is all good. Very important note is you select which core you would like to activate before inputting items, because if you do input the items, well, yes, they will get sorted properly. If you do not select a core, all of these hoppers down here that correspond to each core individually will all be locked, and then after these 2 hopper minecarts get filled up, which is only 10 boxes, they will start to despawn all the boxes. While it's not as big of an issue for cobblestone and wood, because those are easy to get in large quantities, you don't want to do that for the redstone and iron, because those can be difficult to get in large quantities. So yeah, if you don't have a large amount of anything, this is definitely not an early game farm whatsoever, just mainly because of that massive buffer per core. You can, however, you don't have to require to use all 4 cores. So for example, you want to start filling the thing up slowly, recommend filling up 1 core at a time. That way you don't have to worry about the countless shulker boxes that you have to bring over to fill all 4 cores at once. Trust me, I've done it. It's not a great thing to do in terms of all the resources, but for us, we're in late game mode in AutoCraft SMP, so it's not too big of an issue to get those items. We actually even made a cobblestone farm on the outside of the area where we built this. That way it's a little bit easier to bring the items over for that, because you can always bring over large quantities of redstone and iron in forms of blocks here. And with this vanilla crafting station here, you can mass craft them into the iron ingots and redstone dust that you will need to then put into the factory, which is required for the piston recipe. Can't really do that with cobblestone. There's only, you know, your inventory plus your ender chest if you actually do that. Most people have their ender chest filled with other stuff, so a little bit harder to do, and bring over probably close to thousands upon thousands of shulker boxes of cobblestone. For this showcase video, we're going to show off all 4 core mode. So we'll click all the node blocks, and the lamps here that are on, which is the default state the schematic is in, this is representing that the core needs items, which is explained here as well. But if it's off, that means the core has that item type, basically. And that's what you want. I have all 4 cores selected. I would recommend it in 1, 2, or 4 core mode. I would not recommend 3 core mode if you care about how evenly the items get distributed to each core. Because the batcher we use batches the boxes in groups of 4, 1 core would get more items than the other 2 cores, because 1 hopper will get an extra box every single time. It does not switch between each one at all. So that's one downside to 3 core mode, which is I recommend to do in 4, 2, or 1 core mode. So for example, we're gonna have all 4 cores selected. Once we have all our boxes in, obviously you would input a lot more than this. This is basically if you have the buffer completely filled and you're just putting extra stuff to actually be crafted, because once you have the buffer filled, any materials you bring over to craft will then be crafted into pistons. So that's the only, downside, is you have to fill the buffer first before you can actually take the full advantage of this factory. So once we have those boxes in, we're gonna click the node block down there. Our lamps underneath would turn off, and that means that our hopper lock-in is off. Our main display here that tells us if the boxes are being sorted will turn on. As you can see here, our box sorter kicks into action, and the first box is the redstone that we are currently sorting. Then we switch over to the cobblestone. We'll head over to the next one, and as you can see here, they're all getting batched into the batcher. And because we have all of them down, you will see here that this hopper minecart will not be getting any backup at all, and each hopper here will get an item. So after a short amount of time, we're going to put 27 of each box in. Those will get split up into their corresponding cores and item slots. So yeah, the one downside is when building this factory, as you can see here, you'll have to, unfortunately, replace all of the hopper minecarts here and the detector rail if you just paste it in. If you put it up, obviously this won't be an issue because this will be working fine, but because of paste properties in some vanilla Minecraft stuff, you'll have to basically come over to this one, break the detector rail, place another rail up there, and then as basically update it, then you can put the chest minecart back onto the rail. That's just a slight issue when pasting some of these things with hopper minecart loaders like that. It's something you have to really look at, unfortunately. So yeah, once all the buffers are filled, all of these main slime and honey block lines here will turn off, will unextend, and then that will in turn turn off the lamps, which if you actually do it correctly and fill it properly, the AND gates down here will all be off. So basically once every single one of these, for this line here, this one connects to this one, this sticky piston here, which any single one of these turns on, the crafter will get turned off because that will keep the factory from breaking, which we do not want. And yeah, all 4 of these, there's 1 for each material type per core, which you can see here, there's 4 in this core, 4 in that core, and so on. Those ones also go to another AND gate, which is the one that controls if all the materials are currently in the core. So if we have all the materials, this one would get unextended, and that will, after all 4 of those are down, this piston will then retract, and that will retract this one, which will retract this one, and this redstone block would get moved into position to activate the trapdoor, which then starts the crafting sequence for that core. And because of this system here, even if we were to see like we have this system, we selected the core, because we do not have the required material buffer for this core will stay off no matter what, unless the player would of course come down here and break this redstone block, which I highly do not recommend doing. That will basically break the factory and you'll have to come into here and fix everything, which you don't want to do for a 1 tile level crafter, let me tell you that, because getting to the ones in the center are always a pain. So yeah, back to the UI, you can see our hoppers have automatically been relocked. If we were to input more material boxes, this would automatically be relocked and we wouldn't have to worry about the input automatically taking the items out, which is just a huge convenience factor. One other thing for this factory, if you didn't notice, any box that isn't part of the materials to craft the piston here will automatically get returned to the player. Now this is sort of like a huge safety feature that we've had issues with in my past factories. When building them in survival, there's always a chance for someone to misinput a box that's not needed into the system. This basically little mini whitelister here will only allow those 4 items needed to craft the piston to be input into the crafter here. And if you were to misinput a box, and you would hear this annoying sound here, that will also flash these lamps here telling you that you misinput a box and it was basically saved from breaking. And it will not turn off until you take that item out of the chest here. Yeah, once the pistons are crafted, you filled up all your buffers and everything's all good to go for all 4 cores, or a couple cores if you decide to do that. All those crafted pistons would then get packed into shulker boxes here. I unfortunately didn't have or put a UI up there for the shulker boxes, so there's only a little bit of space down here for shulker boxes to be put into the system, but obviously if you have second shulker boxes, this is a lot of storage. If not, you can always add more space, more double chests and things like that. I just personally just included that because for our use case. So then yeah, those would go up to the factory. There is a single box buffer here. There would be a box down here. Fortunately, with the way I update this, I just use a piston here because we power this dropper or this dispenser here, and that also would then in turn QC this dropper here. So just to update that, I put a piston there. So unfortunately, there is a box buffer, but you could basically avoid that just by taking an observer here and an observer there, and that would get rid of your buffer for you. But if you're crafting this many pistons, you really don't care about a box buffer. If all of you have probably 200 boxes of pistons buffered inside the factory itself, in terms of if you use all 4 cores. So those would then get transported up to here. With this box display, will take a little bit to fill up, so you would have this 2732 box buffer for this, and then anything else would then get put into this double chest here. And then once that slice fills up, you get a lamp indicator here, and then we'll move on to the next slice, and there's about 2.5 million spaces here for pistons to be stored. This is a manual override for the chunk loading. If you do want to, per se, turn the chunk loading on without the factory being on, you can do that, because the chunk loading only turns on if a core is currently crafted pistons, which we can see basically by this observer going into this sticky piston here, which then transfers up to the chunk loaders. So you can override this and keep the chunk loading on all the time. Say, for example, you wanted to input items into here and you wanted to leave the nether. Definitely wouldn't want to have that turned on, or else this box order could have some issues, and then other things of that nature. Same for the sticky piston crafter. These crafters do not override the chunk loading at all, so I would also highly recommend to turn that on if you were planning on leaving the area. And then yeah, those ones that get crafted by the sticky piston crafter here also have an AND gate, so that if there's missing materials and you still turn the crafter on by retracting this redstone block, it will not turn the crafter on, which would then lead to breaking the crafter here and having the player to manually fix it, which you definitely don't want to do. So yeah, those pistons get packed in the shulker boxes here, and then also have a single box buffer. Those then get transported up into the same storage silo, which has about 2.5 million pistons. I don't see anybody using it, but just for symmetry, it's the same on both sides here. And the input for this is the pistons on the left, slime balls on the right. I try to indicate that with the actual blocks here. So yeah, that's basically the whole factory broken down in quick terms, how to operate it from a person's perspective that hasn't worked and constructed the factory. I would say for me, it's really easy to know what does what, as I basically put everything together myself, and so that definitely makes it a little bit easier. But for people that haven't worked on it, understand anything, this video was helpful for you on how to operate it, what's going on here. If you do need any more clarification though, you can reach out to me in the Ask for Help channel in my Discord, which will be linked down below, and I can help you if you have any questions, issues, concerns, any of that kind of stuff. Definitely feel free to reach out to me and I will help the best as I can. Obviously, pictures, videos, any of that kind of stuff that will help me understand what the current issue that you are having definitely is appreciated, as it just makes the process a whole lot easier on what's going wrong, how can I fix it, and things of that nature. So yeah, if you do want to get this schematic here, join the Discord, and there is a schematic in the public archive, which you can then go to and take a look at and have fun AutoCrafting Piston. Make sure you like, subscribe, all those sorts of things, and I will see you in the next one where we actually build this up in survival.